Everybody, welcome back into Bayou Time. I'm Harry McCullough. Thanks for joining us. We are joined today by the sheriff of Fuchs Parish, Mr. Craig Webre. First, Craig, thanks so much for joining us. We want to talk about a joint investigation that you guys had recently that actually had some very serious allegations that go along with these arrests that you've made, along with the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office. But first, we understand you're recovering from COVID. It's been obviously a big thing over the last couple of years. Are you feeling okay and everything's all right?
And I feel wonderful. I have been vaccinated and boosted, and I guess last Wednesday night I got a little sniffle, and Thursday morning I tested positive. So, following the CDC guidelines, I took my 5 days of quarantine, got some good sunshine therapy, and returning back armed with 5 days of mask wearing. But I can't complain as far as any symptoms. I really felt wonderful throughout this whole process.
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
I
And
think,
yeah, of course,
and I think really I was going to say there's only two people, right? There's people who've had it and people who are going to get it. I'm convinced that this thing will cycle the entire population.
yeah, I think you're right. I'd had it earlier on, but hopefully, yeah, we'll get to some kind of herd immunity here and kind of be done with this, where it's probably be a seasonal deal. But we do have the job, and we do have the tools now to fight it a lot better than we used to. And of course, a good sheriff is going to follow CDC guidelines. So, of course, a lawman's got to do that. So Sheriff, let's talk a little bit. You had an announcement they had a big arrest of a couple of guys, and you guys worked in coordination with Terrebonne Parish. You want to talk a little bit about that case?
Yeah, this is a interesting case, and it's an unprecedented level of reckless and random violence. We first got involved with this case on a multi-jurisdictional level after there were a series of back and forth shootings between two primary locations, one in the Raceland area, the area where Pepper Cooper was living with family members, and another one in the area in Homa. Back, I think, on the first incident was December 15th. There was a drive-by shooting into the residence and vehicle parked in front of the Raceland location. The next day, there was a retaliatory shooting in Homa. And so we were working with officers with Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office and Homa PD in an attempt to develop suspects. We had very little cooperation and very little information to go on, but we were recovering whatever we could from the scene. Then it got really, really crazy on December 22nd. There was, in a period of 12 hours or less, there were 5 back and forth shootings. First shooting was in Raceland that resulted in a drive-by in Homa, and then that was followed by a drive-by in Gray, and then that was followed by a fourth drive-by in Raceland, and then a final drive-by in Homa. And that's when we really ramped up our joint investigative efforts because there were going to be innocent people getting killed. The people that were feuding and continued to use deadly force against each other didn't seem like there was anything going to stop them from trying to carry that out. But the recklessness and the level of lethality is almost unprecedented. That many shootings at those specific locations without regard to innocent people being harmed not forced us. We responsibly put every effort that we could into trying to get evidence to identify and apprehend the people responsible. The last shooting was this past Saturday. That was January 6th. That was I think 11:15 in the morning shooting in Homa, where finally Homa Police Department developed enough probable cause and may have had finally had some witness testimony to identify Pepper Cooper as the person who was shooting into the residence at the location. Once the warrants were obtained by the Homa Police Department, we then put on an intensive manhunt in an attempt to locate and apprehend Mr. Cooper. We were able to isolate him. We were checking known locations using a combination of digital evidence and other intelligence, and we located he and Jacoby Jackson in an apartment off Highway 182. The investigators were working together, doing surveillance, and were finally able to positively identify and confirm that they were in the hotel room, at which point they were taken into custody without incident. Search warrants were obtained for the vehicle that they were in. They initially had left the room, got into the vehicle, and were about ready to pull onto the street. And then, for some reason, either they got spooked or whatever the case may be, they actually backed back into the parking lot of the hotel and re-entered the room. And so we had the reinforcements in place, made the apprehension, got search warrants, located drugs and weapons, two weapons in particular. One was a AR-15 short barrel with a high capacity drum magazine. The second one being a 45 caliber handgun. Many of the casings that were recovered on the shooting on Saturday in Homa were AR-15 casings. The weapons and the casings have been sent to the state police forensics to do analysis to see if they can match the weapon to the casing, and we believe that they will. And then, of course, we have also working with ATF to try to trace the origin of the firearms. We've checked the NCIC, National Criminal Information Center, and neither of those two weapons have been reported stolen. That doesn't mean they're not stolen. It simply means they're not in the system where they would have been reported. So ATF can trace the origin from manufacturer and any owners that would have acquired it from a retail purchase.
We're talking about a multi-agency investigation had an arrest of Pepper Cooper out of Raceland and Jacoby Jackson out of Homa, and some real escalated violence that was happening recently in the last couple of weeks in this area. Very interesting when you talk about it. And Sheriff, do you think this will calm things down as far as the number of events that happen in such a small amount of time?
Well, we certainly hope so. And somewhat unique about this particular series of incidents is that they were very directed to two specific locations with one third location. And that's really because one of the people that were being sought after may have been there. What's shocking is, Pepper Cooper is 20 years old. His first conviction was in November of this year for simple burglary of burglarizing cars. And he goes from a conviction for burglary, and now he's involved in a number of just random, well, I say random shootings directed towards a particular individual or group of individuals without regard to the lethality of that. I mean, it's almost incomprehensible that no one was seriously injured and or killed, particularly innocent people. But when you're going to be at that age and take those extreme violent measures, there's something wrong. I certainly want to compliment Homa and Terrebonne and our detectives for working so diligently and really preventing the loss of life. This thing would not happen.
No, and I think you're right, especially when you're talking about an AR-15 or automatic, nearly automatic weapon, and those kind of things. You're right, and then crowds gather during festive times and that kind of stuff, and we've seen it in bigger cities when there's a lot of people on a Bourbon Street, say, that shooting something like that happens, and people just are just bystanders will get hit. So it took a good amount of policing to get this done. Is that becoming harder and harder for police agencies to kind of crack down on things like this?
Well, the lack of cooperation really certainly hampers an investigation, but we've also made a lot of advancements in the area of digital evidence and digital technology. Everything from, tracing cell phones and text messages to cameras that are home-based and business-based cameras. So we have some advantages that have helped us to solve cases like that, maybe more effectively than in the past with all of the video and digital evidence that exists that we can capture and use.
Are we worried at all? Because there always seems to be a victim, and in some of these instances, a lot of times it is payback. That we worried about the next one, or the next one, or the next one. Are we sufficiently satisfied that this will kind of calm down?
I think between this group of individuals, certainly the bond is, I think, $6 million, one for each of charge of attempted murder. And due to Terrebonne's jail not yet being open, we're housing them here in Lafourche. But we also have charges in Lafourche as well, so it's not unprecedented. Um, but it is concerning that people that young have such a complete, utter disregard for human life that they would continue to go back and forth with the expectation that either one or both of them would eventually die. And the intervention of law enforcement, I think, is the only thing that has saved lives in this case.
Yeah, I know. I absolutely agree. Hey, changing subjects just for a second. The life after Hurricane Ida that hit our area, coming after 2 years of COVID and just upheaval around the area, just things all in flux. How is life, and how is Lafourche Parish getting back to in both parts of the parish, I would guess, after Ida?
Yeah, for most of North Lafourche, it's pretty well. Life is normal, although individuals are having issues with insurance companies or other such claims. But in terms of commerce and day-to-day life, it's pretty well returned to where it was. We still see a lot of impact in South Lafourche, but overall, I will tell you, from a law enforcement perspective, we've seen a great uptick in the number of overdoses, some of them fatal, many of them not, thanks to police officers, firefighters, EMS personnel administering Narcan as an anecdote. We are seeing an uptick in domestic violence and even suicides. So I believe not just the hurricane may have been somewhat of a catalyst, but I think that the long haul with COVID-19, capped with the hurricane, people not having reliable housing, we've seen domestic violence, suicide, mental health issues, and overdoses on the uptick. So we've been working with our parish and our district attorney in an effort to try to deal with some of the emotional and mental issues surrounding some of that criminal behavior.
Yeah, Christine Russell has been here to speak about mental health and how that's a big part of the equation. It's not just law and enforcement. It's mental health is a big part of it. So you see that as far, and I'm sure with your employees as well as the people you serve.
We're under a lot of stress, and every chief or sheriff that I speak to in any conversation we have ultimately leads to the difficulty we have in recruiting people. I mean, we're still getting applicants, but it's not like it was years ago where you have 50 applicants for every job. Now you might have 2 applicants for every job, and you have to screen through them. So we're in a whole different environment of policing, and there's a lot of stress out there, and people just have a lot of job options as well. I'll also mention, and I think y'all have reported as well at the press conference, the number of fatal crashes. Also, I think in some ways, abuse of substances and despair and mental health issues are contributing to those types of crimes.
Yeah, it is a different world, that is for sure. Sheriff Craig Webre, thank you so much for joining us here on Bayou Time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, we'll be right back with more right after this.